Welcome to the English with Kirsty podcast from www.englishwithkirsty.com. Here I'll be sharing with you tips, information and other learning resources so that you can improve your business English. Hello and welcome to episode 91 of English with Kirsty. And just before we start, I've got a quick announcement, quick request. I'm preparing for episode 100 and there's going to be a resource that goes along with episode 100 about business English and information and resources for people who want to improve their business English. And I'm looking for 10 Facebook pages for people who want to improve their business English. So if you have an idea of a Facebook page that you like to use, specifically something that would be useful for people who need English at work, so more kind of basic general English web pages, not really what I'm looking for, but if you've got something that you think is useful for business English learners, please let me know, either by emailing kirsty@englishwithkirsty.com, and Kirsty is Kirsty, or there'll be a contact form as usual on the show notes page, which this week is englishwithkirsty.com/podcast/episode 91. So this week it's Facebook pages, and if you are listening to this sometime in the future, then still comment, because I will add the links to the Facebook pages that are suggested on this page. So even if it's too late for the resource that I'm putting together for episode 100, it's not too late to contact me if you know a good web page, because I will, Facebook link, then I will add that to the show notes page. Okay, so today I want to talk about something that I think we as teachers often get wrong, and it's something that I'm trying to not get wrong. So we know how students who think like us feel. So if we have a problem with speaking, for example, I was often quite shy until I felt confident with the language, so I know how other students feel if they have the same problem. What we're not so good at is identifying with students that have different problems or different learning preferences. And that's really something I want to look at today, because when I learn a language, I'm really good at doing activities on my own. I like doing activities on my own. I like people too, but I have no problem with sitting with a podcast or an audio book or an activity that is something that you can do on your own. And often, traditionally, listening skills are gained by doing this kind of activity, which is usually something you can do on your own. So I have no problem with that, but I know that there are some people who hate the thought of just sitting there doing something on their own. They really enjoy being with other people. They get their energy from social interaction. And they find it boring just sitting there on their own doing something to improve their listening skills. So that's what I'm talking about today. So how conversations are actually a really good way to improve your listening skills, because often people think, conversations, it's all about speaking, getting with a language partner and you improve your language skills by speaking. But, you can learn just as much by listening as well. And if you are somebody that prefers to be working in a group or working with a partner rather than working on your own, then this is a really good way for you to improve your listening skills too, because you're listening to what the other person is saying and you can learn from them. So when we think about listening skills generally, sometimes people really don't enjoy this activity. Sometimes they do. If it's somebody that likes reading, then they may be interested in podcasts, but often listening is the skill that people neglect the most, because they prefer to read things and say, listening, I know, I haven't got time for that. Or sometimes people try, but they have subtitles on and they end up reading more than they do listening. I'm not saying that subtitles don't have their uses, but I think there are times when people rely on them too much, and that's counterproductive, because you don't really use your ears, or you then wonder why you find it difficult to have a telephone conversation. But there are no subtitles in telephone conversations, so if you really need to speak to people on the telephone, then you need to do some listening practice that doesn't have any kind of reading help. I think there's also a problem where people listen to things at school. For example, they have conversations recorded and they listen to them in class. And it's completely different when you go to an English-speaking country, or when you hear people speaking at the normal speed, which is often faster than materials that are created for people who are learning English. Then people suddenly think, oh, my listening skills are rubbish, but they're not. You haven't had any exposure to real life listening. And if you really want to improve your listening skills, you need to get to the point where you move past the very slowly, clearly announced dialogues for school to people speaking at a normal, fast pace, and sometimes changing their mind in the middle of a sentence because they're not reading from a script. So it's a different kind of listening activity. And sometimes people try to listen to the wrong things. I remember I did this. I put the news on in Turkish when I first started learning, and I understood about one word in 20, and that just wasn't a good thing for me to listen to at the time. Now I can listen to the Turkish news and I understand about 50-60%, I suppose. It's not everything like when I listen to the news in German, but it's definitely enough to understand what's going on, if not every word. But when I started, listening to that was just a waste of time, really. I needed something easier, because if you only understand like 10% of something you're listening to, it's probably not the best resource for you. There are probably better things that will make you feel more encouraged because you understand more of them. So I'm going to talk today about conversations and how they can help you to improve your listening skills. And there are different ways. I'm just going to run through these points now. So if you're talking to someone, like a teacher or a language conversation partner, there's just one voice. And if you're watching something on TV, for example, there are often lots of characters all speaking, and sometimes they speak together and sometimes they interrupt one another. But if you're having a conversation with somebody, you've only got the other person's voice to listen to. So you can really focus on what they're saying rather than trying to pick out one voice from many voices in a conversation. So it's a bit more focused, and obviously they can't interrupt themselves. They might interrupt you, but you've only got one voice speaking at a time when they're speaking. Number 2, you're an active part of this conversation. So if you didn't quite understand something, you can ask the other person to repeat it and go over it again, or to give some more details. It's not like something on the radio where once it's gone, it's gone. If you missed it, then bad luck. In the conversation, you can ask the other person to tell you something again, or tell you in a different way. Number 3, if you are doing that, you will learn more than one way of saying things, so you can pick up new vocabulary. You maybe have time to write down a few new words. But if you ask people to clarify what they're saying, then you can learn multiple ways of saying the same thing, or describing something. If you don't know a word, the other person may describe it to you, and then you learn how to describe it, and you learn the word that you're looking for, hopefully. Number 4, you'll hear spontaneous speech. And this is important because when we speak, we don't always know exactly what we're going to say or how we're going to put our sentence together. As I mentioned before, sometimes people change their mind in the middle of a sentence, or they lose their train of thought and have to start again. So it's good to be able to do that, because if you're listening to scripted speech, it's very clear, it's very tidy, there are no loose ends. But if you listen to people having normal conversations, then there may be extra words that they don't need, or they may change their mind or forget something and have to go back. So it's a different kind of speech to the kind of speech that you will listen to when you're listening to something like the news, because they have a script to follow, and that's different. Number 5, if accents are important to you, you can arrange to speak with people who have the accent that you want. So if you want British English, you can find British English speakers, American English, Australian English, Indian English, all kinds of different English, but you can choose where in the world the person is. And also, if you have a job where you are in a customer-facing role and you could be speaking with people from all over the country or all over the world, then it's often good to get this practice in with having some conversation partners who speak in different ways, because my accent, for example, it's standard English, but for people who maybe work in a call center or something like that, it's really good for them to get a few different language exchange partners, perhaps in different parts of the world, so that they can train their ears to listen to different types of English and different accents. Number 6. If you're having a good time, I've mentioned this before, but if you're having fun and you've chosen someone to speak with that is interested in the same things as you, or that likes doing the same things as you, then if you're speaking to them and enjoying yourself, you will learn automatically, and it won't feel like, oh, I have to do English practice now. It will feel, okay, we're going to the cinema, or we're going to cook something, or whatever you want to do with the other person. But if you're enjoying yourself, then it won't feel like such a chore, and you'll be surprised how much you learn just by speaking to that person. Number 7, it doesn't just have to be one person. It's easier. I definitely found when I was learning German, I built a lot of my confidence by just speaking to one person at a time. But then as I could do that, I was able to join in bigger groups and follow what 2 or 3 people were saying at a time, rather than just the one person. I think definitely in the beginning, for speaking and listening, conversations one-to-one are really good. But then as your skills improve, it means that you can go on to bigger groups and understand what's going on, and also be able to contribute. Number 8. We're talking about listening skills, but as I just mentioned, this is also a way to improve your speaking skills, because it would be a bit of a boring conversation for the other person if they're just speaking all the time. So yes, we're focusing on listening today, but it's also a way to improve your confidence and improve your speaking skills. Number 9, this is good for people who lose motivation or get distracted if they're working on their own. Some people can work on their own really easily. As I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, I do like working with people, but I'm more than happy to do tasks on my own, and I don't lose motivation that way. But I know some people really struggle with that. So if you need the other person being there to help you stay motivated or to keep you on track, then working with a partner and having that accountability, saying, okay, we're going to meet on, I don't know, Thursday evenings or something, then it makes you think, okay, yeah, I need to do that, because otherwise I'm letting the other person down. Then it keeps you accountable, and it also means that they can help you if you've maybe had a hard day and you really can't be bothered with English. On that particular day, the other person might be able to motivate you, and then perhaps you can do the same for them another day when they're not feeling so enthusiastic about the activity. And number 10, I think this is really important about because often we can learn from books and from things that we're reading, which are great, but when you're speaking to people, you learn what kind of phrases and what language they really use, because sometimes I've heard people and they've learned things maybe in a course, maybe at school, and I just think, oh no, we don't say that anymore. That makes you sound like you just popped out of the 1950s or earlier or something like that. It's important to know not just what the books say you should say, but also what people actually say. And obviously that will change depending on the situation. You know, the kind of things that you would say to your friend are not necessarily the kind of things you'd say in a business meeting. But it's important to know that language is changing all the time. Okay, some things stay the same, but words come in and out of fashion, new words are used, some idioms become outdated, some ways of phrasing things become outdated. So if you actually speak to people, then you will know what kind of things people actually say nowadays, and I think that's quite important if you want to sound authentic. So, can you think of someone with whom you can have a conversation this week? And if so, maybe try to arrange it, because not only is this a good way for you to improve your speaking, but also it will really help you with your listening skills too, particularly if you're someone who really needs that kind of people interaction in order to really get motivated and enthusiastic about the task. So I hope this was helpful. If you want to read this is actually something that I wrote about in a guest post on the Leo Listening blog. So I'll add the link to that in the description on the show notes page, which again is englishwithkirsty.com/podcast/episode 91. And if you are interested in listening, then check out Cara's website anyway, because she's got loads of stuff on there about listening and how to improve your listening skills, different techniques, all that kind of thing. So whether or not you go and look at my article, then check out the website as well, because if you want to improve your listening, you'll definitely find it useful. Okay, so don't forget, I'm looking for Facebook pages about learning English, so if you've got any of those, then please let me know either by email or on the show notes page. And next week it'll be something different, so I'm working through, we've got 5 different things that we're looking for, but today it's Facebook pages. So let me know what you think, and it may be included in the resource for episode 100. So have a good week and have fun learning English. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the English with Kirsty podcast. If you have any questions or comments, my email address is kirsty@englishwithkirsty.com, or you can go to www.englishwithkirsty.com/podcast, where you'll find information about the individual episodes.